Then there was noise in Rome and clattering of armour, the grinding of sharp steel and arranged shields. They took leave of their lord and raised their banners, the dragon of gold as their standard, and went forth together. By then ships were prepared and put into the deep, packed and furnished for the tossing waves, with fresh water and wine stored quickly on board, and all manner of provisions for strength. There were many ships afloat, and great fighting ships, cogs and crayers all well fortified, and galleys of great power with golden banners spread wide upon the sea for 5 miles around. They began to draw up their sails when the tide would serve, and sailed into the deep water so they might proceed. And then they sailed over the sea with many soldiers, and landed at Portrayal in the land of Judea, now Syria, Caesar's land. Many sorrow evermore, for much woe was wrought in your fair towns and cities in Zion. Now your sorrow is upon you. For the death of dear Christ you shall dearly pay. Now Bethlehem, your pride is brought to an end. Jerusalem and Jericho, for your wicked judgment. No king of your line shall ever be anointed with a crown, nor any man for Jesus' sake dwell among you any more. They set themselves on every side within Syria, and burned as they went cities and towns. There was nothing but roaring and weeping all around, and destruction lay all over the land. They took towers and towns and rich castles, broke gates of brass and many clever engines, and all heathen folk they brought to the ground in halls and chambers that would not submit. The people fled to Jerusalem where Josephus dwelt, and fled quickly in fear as enemies attacked. A very rich city was set under Zion, with turrets and towers for defence. Many brave men went to their deaths there. No mercy was given for any price. They were all put to death with strokes of swords, and then they hurried on to Jerusalem. Then they set a siege around the city, and raised a pavilion of arras cloth, with ropes of fine silk lifting it high, and great tents like a town of Turkish cloth. They set upon the top 4 carbuncles, with an eagle of gold upon a girdle apple, with great dragons and grim beasts to behold, and 2 lions lying beneath them. The pavilion was painted all around with stories of knighthood and many battles, of wonderful colours to be known from afar. I do not think such another was ever in this world. It was bordered with turrets and bright battlements, and before the siege was fully set, messengers came out from the city, made according to the law of Moses. They went to the chief commander and spoke much with their mouths, saying, "The citizens have sent us to learn your will, and the cause of your coming, and what you claim." Vespasian would not speak to the messengers, but sent back at once 12 worthy knights, commanding them to tell the citizens quickly that their coming was to avenge Christ. Tell them to make themselves ready, bishop and all, tomorrow before midday to stand naked, to open the gates with rods in their hands, each clothed only in his breeches without other garments, to receive judgment for Christ whom they slew. Bring also Caiaphas, the accursed wretch, or I shall go to the walls and cast them to the ground. Not one stone shall remain upon another when I depart. The messengers were then sent forth and went into the city, where the lords of the land were lodged, and told this message exactly as they had been commanded, concerning Christ and Caiaphas, and that they should come when these knights of Christ had finished speaking. The people at once departed without further delay. They bound their hands securely behind their backs. and cut off the fair hair of their long beards, as naked as the heel, wearing only their undercaps. They smeared their faces with blood, and their bodies as well. Then, by common agreement, they tied themselves each to the neck of one of the knights, saying, "We are too defiant to obey his command, and we do not fear his judgment. We have resolved upon death. He shall find us in the field, and seek us no further. Tomorrow, before prime has passed, tell your prince this." The knights turned back, all 12 together, to deliver the message as they had been charged. Never was Vespasian so grieved as when the knights arrived, shaven and abused in so shameful a manner. The knights came before the king and fell upon their knees, and told everything exactly as it had happened. Your threats and warnings they regarded little. See how we are arrayed, as proof of the truth, and bound for our bold speech as though we were thieves. Tomorrow, before prime has passed, the very fate you intended for them shall fall upon yourselves. Thus they bid us tell you, and they send you these tokens. Vespasian then wept in furious anger. He set a watch upon the wars, and quickly commanded that every kind of fighting man should assemble in the field. Soon after sunrise on the following morning, he raised a great standard in opposing fashion, built like a belfry and filled with weapons, so that whenever anything needed for war was lacking in the field, men could run to the tower and find it ready there. A dragon was fashioned and raised aloft, gaping wide with its mouth for the city to see, armed with arrows on every side, and beneath its feet a talon adorned with many kinds of feathers. Upon a ball of burnished gold this dragon was fastened. Its tail trailed downward, never to return. And when it was raised, the people in the city could see it all day long to increase their fear. By it the city should understand that no agreement would be made, nor treaty nor truce, until the town was surrendered. They must either ride out against the Romans and do their utmost, or be slain as miserable captives and remembered as cowards. The belfry was strongly fortified all around, with a mighty tower overlooking the town. Because of its brightness, the dragon could be seen 4 miles away, in truth and no less. Upon every funnel were set high streamers of silk and silver, splendidly arranged. The gold was so fine that it glittered like red fire, all over the city whenever the sun shone. Before the 4 gates were stationed 60,000 men altogether while the siege lasted. A strong watch was kept all around the walls, so that no one might escape by any means. There was nothing while their strength endured but the neighing of steeds, the clashing of steel garments and the fastening of helmets, the arming of elephants and other mighty beasts to advance against the Christians, bearing castles upon their backs. Vespasian, clad in armour, and his bold knights made themselves ready before dawn, marching into the valley of Jehoshaphat, where Jesus shall judge mankind, and there drew upon their battle lines, awaiting the enemy. Titus at once took command of the vanguard, with 16,000 aligned for the purpose. In the centre stood as many more, where Vespasian remained, with princes and dukes. In the rearward were just as many, led by the worthy knight Sir Sabian of Syria. A seasoned man in war, he was a prince of a province, who led a great host, 4,000 men together, all equipped with helmets. Another 10,000 were left behind in the tents to guard the horses and the armour from harm. Soon afterwards the trumpeters in the city blew very loudly, and banners and many pennons summoned their men forth. The people assembled quickly and came out from the city, thousands on horseback, dressed in mail coats, besides those on foot at the 4 gates, pressing out onto the plain with many shields. 45 elephants, beasts fit for battle, came out of the city with castles upon their backs, and upon every elephant were armed men to fight from wooden platforms mounted on their backs. Then came the dromedaries, crowding out in great numbers, 100, all covered in coats of mail. Each bore a great tower, and within it were bold men, 20 counted exactly in every tower. Then camels clothed in steel came out towards the field, in astonishing numbers, prepared for battle, each carrying upon its back a wooden tower, with 10 men at arms. Then came chariots, filled with chosen warriors, so great a number that no one could truly count them. Many brave men that day, who had never before known fear, were struck down in the field before the battle ended. At last there came an unarmoured elephant, covered with a castle skillfully constructed. Within the tower was a richly adorned tabernacle, with a pavilion set upon silver posts, a chest of fine silver hung within, suspended from 4 golden supports so that it stood above the ground. Beside it stood a splendid chair and 12 candlesticks, beaten from burnished gold, with burning candles. The sides of the chair were set with carbuncles and other precious stones. It was covered with rich cloth, and upon it sat Caiaphas, wearing upon his breast a polished plate of gold, adorned with many precious pearls and other costly gems.